All right, so I'm going to go over a couple of sites with you guys because one of the things I want to do is kind of share with you some of the things that I do from threat intelligence perspective, right? So we're going to just cover a few things and then call it a night. So the first thing I want to talk about is this site called Buckets Gray Hat Warfare, right? And this website is used to find S3 buckets. So, we've been talking about cloud and containers and things of that nature and misconfigurations of uh, S3 or cloud. So the database, in simple terms, is called S3 buckets in Amazon. So there are a lot of publicly available S3 buckets that are already out there. So you can use, let me mute some people. So you can use Google Dorks or Google Kung Fu and try to find, um, using Google operators, Google buckets or S3 buckets, right? But sometimes you may not know the syntax and things of that nature to find this stuff. So just want to give you a quick example of operators finding S3 buckets. Okay, so all right, so these examples. So here's my S3, Amazon, AWS, and then the bucket name. So this would be pretty much the name of the company. So it could be Cisco, ArcelorMittal, Federal Express, or whatever the case may be. So now it's trying to find specific URLs that has this S3. So one of my favorite commands to actually use happens to be this particular string here, right? So the site I want to look is my domain name here, and then in the URL, I just want to find S3 buckets. Now you can set it up where you are using, whatever domain or company name that you're actually looking for to find it as well. You can even get to the point where you can find the regions if they're in regions, but it gets to the point where you're doing this search, you're trying to figure this stuff out, and it's very time consuming, right? So there's a site called Buckets Gray Hat Warfare, and it finds it for you. Okay, so they have different packages. There's a free version, registered, premium, enterprise version. All right, so definitely play around with it. You get to see what's in each particular package, right? So I actually just signed up for it today. I knew about it for a while. Actually, yesterday I knew about it for a while, but never signed up for it. But then I wanted to do some recon on some organizations. So basically, what you have here is search for public buckets. So this is what this guy has actually found. So he's done all the work for you. So you can do file names and extensions. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put Cisco. All right. So now it's showing me results for Cisco. Okay. Now it's not the most. You have to kind of refine your search for. Here's PDLs. Now, if I do such a broad term as Cisco, and now it's like 443 results, I don't know if it's actually Cisco mycompany.com or ArcelorMittal or Federal Express or whomever, because I have to do some more deep dive to figure it out, right? So when I look at this domain, and then I look at this is just a PDF. So S3 buckets is a database, but the database is more so kind of the back end of images, files that the front end web server will actually use. So just because it's Cisco doesn't necessarily mean it's Cisco systems, right? So this is something that you have to be aware of while you're troubleshooting and going down this path of, okay, I need to go through these results or tweak my findings so I can figure this stuff out. So this is search by files. Let's go back to buckets. Keywords. I'm going to do, let's do Walgreens. Okay, so nothing for Walgreens. Let's do Walmart. Okay. So here's the development environment for it looks like the development environment for Walmart, S3 bucket. Now, I'm not going to click on it just because it's not my bucket, but this gives you an example of things that you're trying to look for. Now, in theory, most organizations, they have a test environment where they kind of play around with the code and things of that nature. There's not a lot of restrictions on that from a firewall rule perspective. And then they may have a development environment. Now, the development environment mimics the production environment. So they'll have certificates, firewall rules, everything that's similar to the production environment. So if the development environment has 3 web servers on the front end, and then on the back end, 16 Oracle databases, the same thing is going to be in production. Now, sometimes companies don't have that test environment. They just have the development environment. And sometimes the development environment is picture perfect or mirror of the production environment, but sometimes there's still less restrictions. So people look for dev environments because they know it's going to be similar to the production environment. So if I get and understand the development environment, then that's going to give me leadway into what's happening in the production environment. So I see here there's a development environment, and then I see this test environment. I see this is in a different region, right? And so, and then there's Walmart 003, 01, 002. So in some instances, when you load balance applications, you may have the load balancers front ending multiple servers. So it could be a single load balancer balancing between 01, 02, and 03, right? And I'm just taking a guessed estimate, right? Don't know if it's true, but it just kind of stands out that these could be back-end servers front-ended by a virtual IP address. Okay, so this is something that you can do when you have an organization. You're working at Bank of America or Walmart or Walgreens. You want to periodically look at your environment just to see if someone has misconfigured S3 buckets, because usually it's the application development team that's doing that, and you may not even be aware of what they actually have online in AWS. And it only takes one person. Elliot from Mr. Robot said people make the best exploits. So some application developer who has a credit card stands up a development environment in AWS, and he's not taking the correct security posture or even thinking about security. His password is password123. Those are the things you want to look at. Because usually when someone gets into AWS and we talk about lateral movement, laterally they want to move in that AWS environment. But more importantly, if they have that direct connection to the data center, they want to move into the data center as well. Any questions so far? Let's do one more example. Let's do Salesforce. Now I'm just doing the keyword dev just to see what else is out there. All right. Let's do multiple keywords dev. Let's do dev checkpoint. Nothing. VMware. Okay. But you guys get the point. Just do VMware by himself. Okay. So gray hat webfare is something to put in your tool belt. Like I said, I've been using the old method of trying to use Google Dorks to figure this stuff out. And when I found this website, I thought it was pretty cool. Saved me on a lot of time. Any questions? Let me look at the chat. Okay. So the next thing that a tool that I always use is called Spiderfoot. Okay. Now, Spiderfoot is a open source tool. You can download it, run it as a VM. You used to be able to run it on Windows. I think they actually stopped that, or they may have gotten the Windows executable back. But Spiderfoot now, you can do it in the cloud. So the benefit of having it in the cloud is that when I would run scans to do my recon, it would take a long time, right? And I didn't want to leave my Kali Linux or whatever computer I was up doing this particular scan. I didn't want to leave it up for 4 hours or 5 hours because it can take days to do an actual recon, all right? So just to give you an example, here's my Spiderfoot. And I already ran my scans for the month. But basically what you do, my scan is going to call it Cisco. My target is Cisco.com. And I go to my iterations, how many times I actually want to go through and discover it. I just keep it the default. Now, the tricky part is I have all these different modules. Okay? And as I scroll down and look at my modules, I will see something with this little key. So that means it needs an API key. So it'll start pulling from other particular websites. So this is similar to Recon NG or Meltigo. I just like it a little bit better just because of the modules and the way the data is actually presented. Now, the website has changed a little bit. I go to documentation. If I don't go to my modules, it will give me an overview of the particular modules that it has. Now, it has a module to find stuff on the dark web, Shodan, have I been pawned, just a plethora of stuff. It also has the capability to find certificates or SSL certificates that are expiring. So this is going to find things that are base 64 encoded. So if I find something that's base 64 encoded, I can put it in a converter and actually see what it actually is. So I have that capability. Company name, if I put in the company name, which was the target of the domain name is Cisco, cookie extractors. I mean, it has a lot of information that I use. And this is one of the primary tools that I do for my recon. I come in, I let it run with the package that I got is going to run for 4 hours. And basically, it's going to find some of the things that I want. Now, you have the capability to run it multiple ways. So if I run it against a company, and it's not my company, that's illegal, ethically wrong. So you have the capability by what they call toggling. So anything that needs an API key, I don't want to use it, or maybe I do. Anything that's non-passive or all modules, so I can turn off all of them. You see it went off. I can turn it back on. Or now non-passive, so that means anything that is intrusive to that corporation's website, I want to turn it off. Okay. Anything that has modular API keys, I want to turn it off. Invasive. So these are the ones that I definitely want to turn off. Okay. So I have this capability. And then I click on Run Scan Now, and I can save it as a profile, and I'm off and running. I got 92 days to go back and look at the data. And once I get this data, now it gets to the point where how do I present it to the customer? So in the OSINT world, people always talk about these reports. I just put in a fancy PowerPoint, show it to my actual customer, and then they get an idea of what's publicly accessible out the on the internet form. So years ago, I would say, okay, let me scan the dark web and find stuff, right? But then I started noticing with customers is that, okay, finding things on the dark web is a little bit scary, but if I can find things just by using the power of Google and the proper search, that makes them a little bit more worried than finding stuff on the dark web. Now, this thing does have a dark web search somewhere in here. But here's my favorite hacker one: have it been pawned, leak lookup. So these are the things, and actually this is new. Now, granted, sometimes when I run a scan, depending upon what it finds, and it takes a long time, that it may not find what I want. So I'll actually go to the website as well. So Open Bug Bounty is a website that I go to all the time. So and this is one where we had the student actually get a job because in the interview, he went to the company, he went to this website, he pasted in the domain and clicked on search. And he went in and told him, look, you've been unpatched since 2016. And they gave him the job. And he had no cybersecurity experience whatsoever. So you definitely want to get use this, run it on the company that you work for, or if you're doing an interview, you want to be prepared for the interview, you go in and you do a little recon. You understand the company, particularly if you're doing cybersecurity, they're going to say, wow, you found something that my team didn't find, right? Because it's very difficult to find cross-site scripting, right? Gives you the domain. So something's unpatched in 2016. So one of the tools we were going to use, well, I wanted to use Beef. And Beef is actually used for cross-site scripting as well, where we can hook in browsers. So we'll come back to how to use cross-site scripting in the Beef framework. And typically in the past, we've been talking about Metasploit. We did Fat Rat. We did Veil Evasion framework. So Beef is a different framework as well that we'll be actually using in the future. All right, just checking for questions. So that's Spiderfoot, that's Gray Hat Warfare, and then the all-time favorite is Shodan. This tool is probably one of the better tools that I use as well. You can search for things from a host name perspective and a colon. You can also search from title, colon, and HTML. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just give an example. Let's say host name, colon, Cisco.com. So as you think, servers overloaded, please try again in a few minutes. That's something you have to deal with sometimes, but this is my syntax, hostname.cisco.com. So when I look at the syntax for the others, I'm going to do cisco.com. I'm going to do HTML, cisco.com, and title, cisco.com. If that comes up with nothing at all, I'm going to do organization, colon, Cisco Systems. Okay. Then I can also get to use the actual ports as well. I can do city. Let's see what we come up with. Still overloaded. So we'll give it a second. Now, sometimes I can also do IP addresses, right? And I'm going to do 111.11.11. I can do a single IP address /32 or an entire range. Now, sometimes I have to figure out, well, what do I want to put in here? Because sometimes it's tricky to find particular host in Shodan. So there's another tool that I like to use called DNS Dumpster. All right. So DNS Dumpster, what I can do, I can put in, let's do checkpoint.com. So let's do Cisco. All right. So as I scroll down, it's going to start showing me these different TXT records, MX records, DNS records, right? But the cool thing about this particular tool is that as I scroll down, I can download the list of the findings in the spreadsheet. And it found a lot of stuff. More importantly, I can view it in a graph. All right, so pretty big graph, right? And I can expand, I can move these things around. But these are the things that I would also populate in Shodan. Because if I'm looking at my DNS, I may find something that's testcisco.com or devcisco.com. And I may not want to scan it, but I want to see if Shodan can do that scan for me. Okay, so let's see if Shodan's back up.
Both of mine's working if you can't get yours to show. I can show my screen if you need me to.
Thanks, Nick. It just started working as soon as you said it.
Of course it did.
It just took your voice to do it. So we have Nick from Ulta Beauty, right?
You are correct, sir.
And so one of the things that Nick and I've been having conversations probably over the last year of trying to do things at Ulta. And we were talking about hosting events at Ulta Beauty downtown, and then COVID happened and things of that nature. But he's been gracious enough to actually present for us as well. So I did City of Chicago, and this is the thing that you want to look for, right? So these are Windows servers publicly accessible on the internet, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of firewall they have, Palo Alto, Cisco, Checkpoint, doesn't necessarily matter. This one is running Service Pack 1, right? SMB version 1. So any of the old exploit, NIMDA, Code Red, Internal Blue, these are susceptible to that. And all I did was look at City, Chicago, and then you notice here with the syntax, which is pretty cool because now you can start building up your list of syntax to use. So this one was City, Chicago, OS, Windows Server 2008 Service Pack 1. Okay, so now I can look for stuff, well, maybe just Service Pack 1. But these are the things to look at. And another cool thing about Shodan, if I click on exploits, sometimes it finds exploits, right? But sometimes it doesn't. But if I go to, let's do Windows 2008, right? It's going to list the vulnerabilities, right? So when I go to a customer and I find out, oh, they have a server or something out there on Shodan, I list the vulnerabilities. Now, we've learned from a previous class that sometimes these CVEs already have exploits already out there. So although Shodan in that button didn't say exploit, but let's do this one. And the only reason I picked this one because it said buffer overflow. So I'm just going to do a Google search for that, see what it comes up with. So it's going to give me detailed information about it, right? But what I'm going to do is just say exploit. Exploitable, okay. And what I'm trying to do is find something that, and I just found one. So here, CVE 2010-2730. Here's a video on how to do it. There's another video on how to do it. All right. So here's another one that's talking about how to do it. So I just present this stuff to the customer. I don't know how to exploit it, but guess what? If I have 4 or almost 5 minutes, I can figure it out by watching this guy. And the same way, if I got 20 minutes, I can figure this thing out. So these are the things that when you're looking at environment, so even when you go in for that interview, these are the things that you should check and see. Because at every interview, even if you bomb, they're going to always ask you at the end, well, do you have any questions for us? So the first question you should always ask him is, what do you guys complain about when you go to lunch? Because you may not even want to work for that company. And then the second thing is, well, why do you guys have Windows 2008 servers, Service Pack 1 publicly accessible on the internet? How do you know these things aren't compromised, right? And hell, this is running FTP, you know. I need to name this company Zotomi. Nah. Cisco umbrella blocks it. So they're probably already compromised and just infected with malware. And my umbrella is telling me, oh, don't go to that one. Okay. So these are the things just kind of think about. Apache HTTP is another good one to look for stuff. But typically I look for the servers. Another thing I look for, you see where it says product. I want to go back and show you something. So it has the OS, but another thing you can do is port colon 445. And sometimes it likes to. So I want to find anything in Chicago running 445, and 445 is SND. So there's 11,854. I just want to see the port itself. I can do that. 1 point. So definitely use this for your organization to figure out what's publicly out there, what's out there. Because this helps you, because all the bad guys are doing this. All right, they go through, and you know, hell, if I know about it, people who have better scripts or better syntax for search engines are doing probably a better job than I am. So these are the things that you want to look for. Any questions so far? So I'm going to show you this one. And I'll edit the video to make it look a little bit better. But this Apache Tomcat Coyote JSP engine version 1.1. This is a very old exploit. If you are familiar with Metasploitable, Metasploitable's been out since probably 2009, 2010. This is one of the exploits that was in Metasploitable. Metasploitable is a virtual environment that you can practice running Metasploit against. So now, the thing that when I look for this particular product is that if I go Google it, I'm just going to put walkthrough. How to modify Apache code, exploiting. There's a bunch of walkthroughs on how to exploit this. We're going to redefine this a little bit. We get rid of the product, JSP. Okay. Or if you do a write-up on Metasploit full walkthrough. Tomcat. So here it is. So I don't even have to know. I don't even know what Apache Tomcat is, right? Well, I do, but let's just say in theory, I don't know what it is. Doesn't matter. If I know how to use Google and the correct search engine, I can figure out what it is and how to exploit it. And this has been around 2009, roughly 2010, and people are still using this. It used to be up in the millions, so I'm glad some people have stopped. So earlier, maybe like 6 months ago, it was in the million, but I still look for this for my particular company. And what you can do, organization, Cisco Systems, let's do SMB. Let's do port 445. Okay, so quick question in the chat about the consent. So Spiderfoot, I'm sorry, Shodan and some to Warfare, these guys have actually done the finding for you. So the guys who created Shodan want to do something similar to Google. Google goes out, sends out these spiders, search the internet categorizes it, right? These guys who created Shodan want to do the exact same thing based upon IoT devices or whatever the case may be. So it has already done the scan for you. So you're just basically asking Shodan, what have you found? So you're not necessarily going on the company's website, right? So I'm not going on Cisco Systems, just saying, okay, what have you queried about Cisco Systems? Okay. And the same thing with this guy. He's already filtered and found this huge database of stuff already. So I'm just searching his database, paying to search his database. That's why with Spiderfoot, you want to find the things that are passive, not evasive. So when you find things that passive, you look for stuff. So I want to find stuff for Cisco Systems on pastebin sites or open bug bounty, because that's not necessarily legal, because these sites have already gone out. I'm just querying their websites for this particular information. Okay. And typically these are the information that customers don't know that's actually out there, particularly with pastebin. I had one customer, it was actually a college, and they were listed on pastebin, and there was people in China saying use this particular this college's website to create fake email addresses, and they had step-by-step instructions. So this college didn't know that. So once I told them that, they could start making the necessary precautions to try to figure out, well, what's the breakdown in communication? Why is this happening? And start looking at things like DMARC, domain spoofing, and things of that nature. So yeah, you're not using the company's infrastructure, right? You're just querying different things. Now, DNS Dumpster, that's kind of debatable, right? Because you're querying DNS records to actually pull this information. Typically, when you're doing like DNS, what do you call it? At a senior moment, it'll come to me. But if I'm just using DNS to query DNS domains, that's debatable. It's okay. Now, when I started trying to figure out, well, do some sort of DNS, pulling down all the A records and things of that nature, now that's illegal. Okay, I'm just using the power of TCP/IP DNS to figure stuff out, and then once I figure out this information in DNS Dumpster, particularly like IP addresses of, so say if I found something that's development, right? What I'm going to do now is put that same IP address or host name in Shodan, and I want to see if Shodan has actually found something on it. If Shodan has found vulnerabilities, because that absolves me of any wrongdoing, because I'm not doing an active scan. I'm just having someone else, the database of their scans of Shodan, to actually let me know if they have vulnerabilities. Okay. So Spiderfoot constantly use, Shodan definitely use, DNS Dumpster use all the time. And Gray Hat Warfare is something I'm going to start using. I'm putting in my tool belt. Another website someone just told me about, I haven't had time to actually go through it, but you can put in a domain and start looking at things regarding emails, right? So I have a friend, he goes out and he can tell me if somebody's using Proofpoint's email, Mimecast, Cisco, or any of our competitors, right? And he said this was a link that he gave me for the tool. So I haven't used it yet, but has some pretty cool stuff on it. Network, websites, DNS. So haven't used it at all. It's just someone else recommended that to me, so I wanted to share that with you guys. Documentation, bug bounty. So that's mainly it, okay, for today. Now, one of the things that I want you to do as well is that we have a Cloud Lab virtual environment that I want you guys to start using. So probably in 3 weeks, we're going to actually log into this site called dCloud, and we're going to kind of do a little war game exercise. All right. Now, to log into this particular site, and Cisco dCloud is basically a virtual environment that Cisco engineers use, our partners, our customers, anyone can use it as long as you have a valid ID. So what I want for everyone to do is to create an ID if you don't have one already. How you create an ID is this. You go to www.cisco.com. It doesn't cost you anything to register. And I'm already logged in, but gonna I want to log in for, all right. So you're gonna go to this little icon and just go to create an account. Put an email address, first name, everything you need, and just click on register. And once you register, you will have a Cisco account. Now, once you get your Cisco account, I'm just going to ask people, I'm going to send out an email and say, give me your email address. And once I get your email address, what I'm going to do is assign you a pod. And we're going to use something called Defense Clinic, right? In this Defense Clinic, the war game is basically all of Cisco equipment, security equipment, and Kali Linux. And you're going to be running attacks against Cisco infrastructure to troubleshoot and try to find things in the infrastructure. All right. So you get to learn attacks, implement those attacks, and then use equipment to actually see and mitigate those attacks as well. So we can do email spoofing, creating ransomware, malware, the whole 9 yards. Okay. They just updated this lab. It was version 3, so it's version 4. So I'm gonna kind of give you guys a chance to kick the tires on this thing, right? Because our primary purpose is to learn and to educate, but then also some of you guys want jobs, particularly the ones that are in college or changing professions. And what I want to do is, we've been talking about our resumes, right? And so these are the things that we've been doing so far. But now I want to get the opportunity to say operating system background or security networking to say firepower firewall. Okay, so you have a chance to be able to configure that. Right? Or, I want to configure an email to block ransomware. So now we have a product called CES, Cloud Email Services. So now you have that capability. Now the cool thing is this. Even if you're a Palo Alto or Checkpoint guy, when they look at your resume and know that you can configure a firepower firewall, they're going to say, well, he knows how to configure a firewall. The GUI may look different, but he knows the premise of it, right? CES is our email solution. If you know how to figure CES, then you probably know how to configure one of our competitors. So although it's Cisco, it also gives you a leg up to determine, okay, I can actually start applying for jobs and be confident that I know how to do a firewall. Now, we've been playing around with pfSense and things of that nature, and that's good. But now we're going to do a corporate, paid version firewall that's not necessarily open source where anyone can get the code on it. Okay? So that would be the plan. So we'll still constantly build out our resume. We just figured out a couple of new tools to add to our utility belt. And remember, the thing that if you aren't currently employed, you can always use this open source intelligence threat researcher. All right? Because we constantly give you the tools to actually do that. So go to cisco.com, register your username, create an account if you don't have one already, and then I'm going to start assigning you pods. Now, when we assign the pod, the first thing I know you can say we only meet for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most, but you would have 24 hours actually to do this assignment. So we'll start here, and then we're not going to be able to finish, but you can finish it the next day, right? Now, someone asks, well, can we do it on a Saturday? That's a possibility, right? So what we'll do is start on a Tuesday. No, I'll tell you what, if we do it on a weekend, we'll just make a special day to do it, right? So what we'll do is we'll start on a Tuesday, make sure everyone's comfortable to log in, and then we'll just spend, a Saturday morning or something, we'll log in, you go to the lab. The labs are self-paced as well, and you just spend that Saturday and Sunday actually doing it. So we'll start on Tuesday, but then I'll have to reassign the labs to you on Saturday. So, but we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. The first step is to get your account created.